Okay. Is it running?
We are recording.
Hi, this is Jim Orman from the village of Aurora.
Oh, you're not ready? Oh, I think you
I was kidding.
were. I'm still rolling. Go ahead. Whenever you're ready. Rolling.
Hi, this is Jim Orman from the village of Aurora. I serve as mayor here, and I've been asked to partake in discussions concerning water quality, integration of services within the villages, the towns, the counties, all of that. In response to Phil Dan and his crew, following up on what I think was a recommendation from Congresswoman Kenny and Senator Gillibrand, forming a commission for the Finger Lakes, just to discuss this issue and find out what's good, what isn't, and possible solutions, all of that. I know here in Aurora, we're faced with a pretty serious dilemma, but it's more with budgetary concerns than it is with water quality. However, because of the depth of our water intake for our water plant, the quality definitely comes into it, along with the turbidity issue when the winds come out of the north, which we've been keeping track here, and they have done that more often lately. It kind of shifted the way the lake operates with regards to turbidity, to HABs, and other issues that are associated with the lake these days. A few years ago, we never had to worry about that. Now we do. And we thought, well, we're on Cuba Lake. Wasco Lake's smaller. They don't have the tonnage of water that we have, the gallonage of water that we have. But now it has crept into and is actually becoming quite a problem here in Cayuga Lake. And we have tried to, or we have been a part of a partnership with Cayuga County Water and Sewer. And part of the plan is to extend a sewer line to help alleviate the septic issue along the water line between Aurora and Tompkins County. That is moving slower than we thought, but it's also reliant on grants, and that takes a while, a long while. There's definitely not enough users in that territory that we're talking about to fund what would be a 25 or $30 million project. So we're absolutely reliant upon federal and state grants. And everybody agrees it's a problem, and I've seen this in other areas. People easily come to a consensus when there's a problem, but when there's a solution, we don't seem to have that input or resources to resolve the issues. And that's kind of where we are now. Everybody agrees it's a problem. And until and unless we all get together on this, instead of acting in separate avenues and as separate entities, it's going to remain a problem because none of us can shoulder that financial burden alone. But together we can, or at least move forward in the issue. But as far as doing it alone, it's like our village here. When Wells College left, we had to assume, at the urging of Cayuga County Health Department and New York State Health Department, the burden of owning and operating a water plant and do it immediately. Well, if anybody's ever set up a water plant, they know it takes years of planning. We had to do it literally within weeks and a couple months. Now we're faced with extraordinarily high water rates. And unless and until we get some relief from New York State in the short term, the ability to sustain that water supply, that intake from Cayuga Lake, is it's a very heavy lift for us right now. And it's not going to be good news when all this is presented in the budget, which it will be shortly. But it's a fact, and we can't get around it. Limited amount of users using more water than they can afford to, maybe, we hope not. But I would like to see us get to a point, and we discussed this at the last roundtable, where we combine with towns, with other townships. We already combined with the two villages to the north and got a state grant, but those grant monies of $10 million cannot be used for operating and maintenance, only for selected few projects that will enhance the community, which is great. But if we don't have water, we don't have a community. It's that simple. So here we are, and we're hoping that maybe our little bit of input can help the bigger group move forward. That's what I said earlier. There's a high degree of interest in all this. Everybody has got their own little, well, I think you should do this. Well, I think you should do that. But as far as actually organizing, getting together, that's at a level of county government and state government that they should be taking note of this. Perhaps town hall meetings. Again, I'm not in that position. That's what I would do, and take that information and go back and talk about it, instead of just putting commissions, or not commissions, but committees together willy-nilly without a specific purpose, organization, objective, milestones, and end date, or at least somewhere in the neighborhood of an end date as far as an objective goes. That's what I would do. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. I don't have that expertise. I don't think anybody in this room has that specific expertise on exactly what to measure, how to quantify that data, and then put it into a final solution. But to your point, it's going to take, again, as Phil said, a regional, and then beyond that, combine that into a state and then multi-state effort. But that particular problem seems to be more concentrated right here in this area, in this central New York area. Now, they may have it across the U.S. I don't know. I haven't heard of any. It's mainly been from Buffalo to Albany and parts south. That's what I've heard. It's the only approach I know of.
Yeah. Do you think the public at large is aware of the circumstances?
I think they are, but not acutely. I think they're aware to where they can say, yeah, we got an algae problem. Yeah, it hasn't hit them. If it hits them, that's when you sit up and take notice. There's very few of us. I'm one of them. I walked out on my deck, which I looked down on my cottage down on Honeco Road into the water, which is about that deep at that point. And I had a little boat in the dock, and my daughter and I were going to move some stuff in the lake. We looked down, 3:00 in the afternoon, bright, pure green algae, just like a pea soup, obnoxious, ugly. If one didn't know what it was, they still wouldn't even think about going near it. And this expanded beyond me to other cottages. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't there at 5 or 6 o'clock. A little bit of a ripple comes up and it goes. But it's in the lake, and it surfaces during calm times that I can see.
Is this
That's directly affecting somebody.
Is this something that you're more aware of recently?
Within the last 5 years, yes, which is recent in the context of time. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I know, I don't recall, now that you mention it, I don't recall public forums or public addresses concerning this issue other than spot times. If something pops up and they go, oh yeah, the HABs appeared. That's where you see it in the news. Oh yeah, don't go in it. Don't let your pets in it. Everybody knows that. Specific causes haven't, I don't think, been totally described. But I think in general, yeah, there is a knowledge of what it is. But if you ask somebody, it's like anything else. Oh yeah, I know that. All right, give me some details. Well, I don't have details, but I know about it. So It would need to be talked about. You can start at the local level, that's where everything else starts, but up through the process, up through the structure, and make everybody aware of it. You think anybody in New York City cares about green or blue-green algae? They don't know about it, but it's affecting their state. So,
How do you feel about grants and subsidies? Because in the case of Aurora here, we do not have sufficient subscribers to carry the burden of water treatment.
That's correct.
Coming and going.
that's correct.
That is a problem.
Yep.
But this problem has to be solved. It's going to take money.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere the money has to come from. It can't come from the subscribers. It really wouldn't be fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because you might posit that we are cleaning up effluent from industrial farm operations or any agricultural industrial amendment to the soil that creates what's going to be measured as a measure of the problem. What do we do about the cost to all the people in the state? How do you feel about that? Is that fair to assess everybody in the state through a grant or a subsidy to cover a very local problem? Because that's where the money's got to come from, everybody at the state level.
Well, interestingly enough, I'd have to see what grants cover other areas for that doesn't affect us. So are we in this as a state, or are we in it just as a village or a county? That's what I would have to see, because I've seen that at the county level. People in the north might go, well, that doesn't affect us. Why would I fund something in the south that affects the lake and all that? Or issues up in the northern part of the county, or issues in the northern, western, eastern, and southern parts of New York State. Somebody in the North Country says, what do I care about New York City? It
Exactly.
doesn't affect me. Then one might say, well, they do provide the majority of sales tax to upstate New York to allow them to operate. But nobody seems to look at that kind of thing. They think about here. They don't see those tables, they see this one. And it's just the way it is. I don't know how to fix it. I can only somewhat explain why. There's a relationship there because that's the largest industry in Cayuga County. It's ahead of tourism, which is huge. So naturally, the elected people in this area are going to pay special attention and form relationships with agricultural community. I'm not sure how they legislate because of that. I don't know their reasons. I'm not privy to that. But yeah, there is a natural relationship, whether, regardless of whether it's agriculture or whatever it is. But I'm not sure there's I mean, I would think there would be, as far as awareness goes, because you want to kind of look at what are the real reasons. I'm not saying it's agriculture. I don't know. I've never heard a specific detailed reason on HABs being in the lake, on blue-green algae, any of that. I hear general stuff, but I never hear real specifics. It's kind of like solar industry. I never hear real specifics on how it came about, what happens at the end of the shelf life, what happens to the materials, what happens to the land. Is it still reclaimable? Isn't it? I don't know. It's the same thing. I just don't ever seem to get that kind of information. And I think if that were available to the public, they'd be better off or better able to make a decision when they do vote on who's proclaiming what. First of all, people, if they're going to become aware, they have to want to be educated. They have to want to be aware. And if they're not, there's other things that certainly take up their interest. And that's what they will pursue, those other things that they're truly interested in. So to be aware of something that's an issue they have to be educated on why it's an issue. Whether it's health, is this a health issue? Look at the three people, unfortunately, in Auburn that just sued the city for particles. I can't remember exactly the scientific terms that were in the water, and they claimed that it affected their brain and they contracted brain cancer. Is that? I don't know enough about it. I only know what I read in the paper. Things like that come up. You can certainly bet that circle around those people is aware of it. They want to know more. But for the average person, we're sitting here right now. Um, and you look out the window. Is that affecting us? Doesn't appear to be, but maybe it is. That's where we need to make people aware. And perhaps you do that by getting local governments to hold forums to rise to the next level. You deal with the New York State, what's it called, NICOM, Committee of Mayors. Every mayor in New York State is part of that. Then there's an association called the Association of Towns. Every supervisor is a member of that. So those are two huge key groups that can help publicize it. But again, if you don't want to learn about it, you're probably not going to. So that's how you begin at the local level, and just keep talking or emailing or newsletters about it. But again, there's several other issues that come up. So does that particular issue take the place of higher water rates, higher taxes, higher this, higher that? Food, grocery stores, it's getting people to really want to be aware of it. If you're a sports fan, do you root for all the teams? No, you pick one. And you go nuts over it because you're interested in that particular subject. But yeah, oh yeah, that team's all right. Yeah, okay. That's kind of how I do it. How you do it is a way bigger situation. That requires an art that I do not possess. I think my expectations are pretty low compared to the subject matter. Mine are, of course, I want to see something move forward in the form of awareness. So I don't know what to expect, but I think just the fact that you are here taking your valuable time, you drove down here, you've set all of this up, and you're doing it on your own dime
Speculation.
because you're interested.
Thank you.
It's a big thing. You've become more aware than some people have. So these kinds of things help make other people's awareness rise to the level where they may even partake, but they certainly will take an interest, or the next time they see something, they'll go, well, yeah, I did hear about, yeah, that's right. Those kinds of things, but they're slow to build, but they do build.